8 a.m. Sunday. Checkout time at the Mental Motel. I scanned myself for wrinkles or untucked corners on my clothes. Convinced all had returned to normal, I headed out the door and down the hall. I reached the front desk, where I stood in line behind other improper imbibers, all waiting for their personal items and the freedom to leave. I knew most of them. 2 were my dearest friends. I tried to hide my face, but they saw me anyway. "How you doing, Hodge?" said Ron Galloway, a local musician with whom I'd spent many nights playing guitar, imbibing large quantities of alcohol in a proper manner, well, mostly, and having deep philosophical conversations about the girls we'd love to love if only we weren't so drunk. He had a square Frankenstein's monster head with black mop-top hair and sideburns. His forearms jutted from his white tee the way Popeyes did in the cartoons. "It's been ages." "We saw each other Friday at the club." The club was a tiny hole-in-the-wall after-hours bar on the other side of the tracks. It was a place where folks like us could imbibe improperly well after legitimate bars closed. It didn't have a name. The club was just the club. "Oh," said Ron. "That's right. Good to see you all the same. How's it going?" "Terrible, Ron. I spent the night in the loony bin." "Same here." "So did I," said my other friend, Carolyn Yeager Bates, who I should point out was one of those women Ron and I would love to love, though I won't describe her, as I think that Ron's taste and mine speak for themselves. "I hate it, but I'll get used to it. It's only my 3rd time." "Really?" said Ron. "It's my 4th. I interrupted them. "You don't understand. I wasn't drunk." "Of course not," they replied in unison. "Neither was I." Then Ron added, "But I tell you, wasn't that a great game yesterday?" Carolyn said, "It certainly was. Who won?" "We did." "Oh, good. I was drinking, and I guess I missed that somehow. What was the score?" "I don't know. I lost track in the 2nd quarter. But I'm sure we won. We were up by 108 points, I think." "You mean?" Again, I tried to cut in. "Listen, I really wasn't drunk. The cops picked me up because I tried to keep them from arresting this old man with a big bag of dope." "That's dope fiends for you," said Carolyn. Ron, with a reminiscing grin, added, "Yeah, dope fiends. What a shame. You didn't get any, did you?" "He wasn't a dope fiend. He's the one who called the cops." "Wow," said Carolyn. "That's wild," said Ron. "I think I'll write a song about it." "Really?" said Carolyn. "I can't wait to hear it." "Yeah, it'll be..." "Okay," I practically shouted. "Just forget it. Forget I ever mentioned it." It was a redundant thing to say, as I think they already had. Ron grabbed his temples. "Don't talk so loud. I have a headache." Carolyn said, "You're a bit touchy, aren't you? Not have your morning cup of coffee?" I raised my arm, index finger extended, intending to force home my point, even if I offended or upset my 2 friends in the process. Fate intervened. "Next, please," said a muscular orderly behind the desk. "Who's next?" Carolyn stepped forward and Ron moved in close behind her, leaving me there with my lower jaw down and my finger raised defiantly. Ron rushed toward me as I opened the door to my taxi. He must have been hiding behind a tree or a parked car, stalking me, watching for the ideal moment to strike, the perfect opportunity to achieve maximum taxi penetration. "Hodge, old buddy, wait up, will you?" I turned, expecting to see either a babbling lunatic dressed in a straitjacket and pajama bottoms, or a husky imbecilic orderly rushing at me with a primed needle full of Thorazine. Needless to say, it was a relief to see Ron, sort of a deranged cross between the two. "What is it, Ron? I'm kind of in a hurry here." He wore a somber, pleading look, like what might be seen on the faces of vegetable rights activists, the ones who march through middle-class neighborhoods carrying signs that say, "Your dandelion is your friend," or "The grass is always greener when it's allowed to live," trying to discourage landowners from mowing the lawn, weeding the flower bed, or whatever. "Hodge, old buddy," he pleaded. "I have a bit of a problem." "So do I. If I don't hurry, it'll get worse." He reached into the pockets of his faded jeans and pulled them inside out. This revealed a few pieces of blue lint, 3 guitar picks, and a fragment of green aluminum which at one time or another might have been a part of the package a condom came in. By the way, a condom, also called a rubber, even though it's not actually made of rubber, is a latex device used during sexual intercourse. It covers the male genital organ to prevent pregnancy in the female, protect against the spread of disease, and, as it was once explained to me by a neurotic, irrational woman, whom I was sleeping with, to shield the man's vital anatomy from the carnivorous demons which live in vaginas. "I seem to have spent all my money yesterday," Ron said, as if to justify the action and show that the lint, foil, and picks were not some sort of spontaneous tribute to my greatness. Ron wasn't into idol worship. Which reminds me, I should finish up and get back to our main character, who's looking less like a main character and more like a minor, insignificant one, or even a figment of my imagination. "No," I told Ron, "I can't give you any money." He grimaced, hoping I'd change my mind out of pity. "Can I at least share your cab?" I thought about it carefully. I could ignore him and slam the door in his face, or I could drag him with me to the jail, then get him back to his car later. While I took care of business, he could fraternize with the criminals, murderers, drug dealers, politicians, improperly imbibing drivers, and any other old friends he might run into. The third option was to return to the loony bin and tell the doctors they'd made a mistake in letting me go. I could lie and tell them I wanted to assassinate the president of the local street corner Santa Claus Union for striking every year at Christmas time in order to demand higher wages, better working conditions, a less formal dress code, and holidays off. But I wasn't in the proper frame of mind for self-incarceration. I looked at Ron. I looked at the cab driver. I looked at my watch. I looked back at Ron. I looked like a bumbling fool. "All right," I said, "get in." "So, tell me about this big bag of dope," Ron pried with real interest, sounding almost too eager. "Just curious," he added. During the car ride, I filled him in on the story as I knew it, leaving out any references to our main character's false divinity, since that hadn't been revealed to me yet. I did mention my initial impression of him as resembling Jesus and a hippie. I also noted my opinions about the various police forces, their inefficiencies, and how society would benefit if they learned to work together. Ron seemed unimpressed. "Tell me about the weed," he said. "What exactly would you like to know?" "Well, just how big was it? Was it a dime bag?" I laughed. A dime bag of marijuana is a relatively small amount. Many people make this assumption based on the title, dime bag. It's only logical that you won't get much marijuana for 10 cents, which is to say, a dime. You can rarely even find a good piece of bubblegum for 10 cents. And believe me, bubblegum, although it has its virtues, is not on the same level with dope. However, a dime bag doesn't actually cost a dime, that is to say, 10 cents. It costs $10, which makes no sense. So a dime bag is the small amount of dope that you can purchase for $10. No, I emphasized, it was a heck of a lot bigger than a dime bag. Was it a quarter? Again, this gets confusing. A quarter, like a dime, doesn't cost a dime, that is to say 10 cents. That's only logical. It's right there in the name. But, in following the trend established with the dime, a quarter can also be presumed not to cost a quarter, that is to say 25 cents. Since a dime sounds like 10 cents, but actually costs $10, then basic reasoning stipulates that a quarter, which sounds like 25 cents, should actually cost $25. Right? Not true. That would, after all, be far too simple. No, it costs neither $25 nor 25 cents, but rather $60 or somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on current market trends. A quarter costs $60 more or less, because the term quarter in this instance doesn't refer to cost, but to weight. It signifies that a quarter bag contains a quarter of an ounce of marijuana. Where the dime consists of a fixed price with a variable quantity, a quarter consists of a fixed quantity with a variable price. No, I repeated. It was a heck of a lot bigger than a quarter. So how big was it? I considered the question, picturing in my head the big bag of dope. Not being an expert on the subject, I guessed maybe 2 or 3 pounds. Now, 2 or 3 pounds is a term not often used in association with a bag of marijuana. It doesn't cost a dime, that being 10 cents, nor does it cost a dime, that being $10. It also doesn't cost a quarter, that being 25 cents, nor does it weigh a quarter, that being a quarter of an ounce. It's neither $25 nor $60 more or less. In fact, it probably costs, well, a lot. The symbolism in describing the big bag of dope as being 2 to 3 pounds is very simple. It weighs 2 to 3 pounds. No hidden meanings, no diabolical codes, no algebraic equations requiring an advanced math degree. 2 to 3 pounds means 2 to 3 pounds. It's a revolutionary category. It's also a heck of a lot of dope. The look on Ron's face at the mention of this was one I'd seen many times before, usually when he and I ventured to area exotic show bars featuring naked women dancing wildly to loud music. The look of uncontrollable desire. Wow, he said in a straightforward and somewhat childish manner. 2 to 3 pounds. I'd love to get my hands on that. Ron spent the remainder of our journey in a fog, dreaming about 2 to 3 pounds of marijuana. While the smile on his lips and glazed look in his eyes, I might have thought he'd found the marijuana and smoked it. That didn't bother me until he and the cab driver began singing old Grateful Dead songs in a semblance of harmony that could only be appreciated while under the influence of controlled substances. It wasn't so much the singing that bothered me. It was the lack of controlled substances.